Okay, so we're going to be covering some of the concepts we've already covered in past lessons, but our primary effort is going to be introducing some of the new stuff like VLAN, multi-factor authentication, and doing a quick port scan with NMAP. So the first thing here is we're going to talk about our multi-factor authentication in Windows Hello. So MFA adds an extra layer of security by requiring users to provide two or more verification methods to prove their identity. Typically, this includes a knowledge factor, so your password, possession factor, so something you have, like a mobile device, an inheritance factor, something you are, like fingerprint or face recognition. By configuring Windows Hello, which uses biometrics or pins, and linking with Microsoft's MFA, such as using the Authenticator app on your mobile phone, you significantly reduce the attack surface on the host by ensuring a stolen password alone won't allow unauthorized access. Whenever you're dealing in network environments, MFA ensures that only legitimate users can access sensitive systems, and it mitigates the risk of unauthorized access from phishing attacks, credential-based attacks, and other network-based intrusions. When we're dealing with firewall rules, which we reviewed last week already, a firewall acts as network security system that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic. It operates based on predefined security rules to either allow or block specific traffic. When you're using OpenSense or pfSense, which are open source firewall solutions, software often deployed as the perimeter defense to your network. So firewalls like those in OpenSense can be configured to protect critical host assets by restricting incoming traffic from unreliable or unknown sources. Firewall rules prevent many forms of attacks, such as port scanning, denial of service attacks or DOS attacks, or remote access attempts. At the network level, firewalls ensure that isolation and compartmentalization of different network segments, and they enforce security policies. OpenSense rules can filter inbound and outbound traffic by protocol, port, source IP, and destination IP, which allows the organization to define and implement strict control over network communications. We can also do network segmentation using VLANs in OpenSense. So VLANs are virtual local area networks. They allow you to segment your network into separate virtual subnetworks, even if all the devices are physically connected through the same hardware, such as a switch. VLANs segregate traffic, limiting broadcast domains and reducing overall traffic congestion, while also providing a foundational layer for network security. So by placing your critical hosts, such as your servers, workstations, and other stuff on separate VLANs, you ensure that even if one computer or VLAN is compromised, the compromise does not automatically extend to the rest of the network. Only devices on the same VLAN can communicate freely, and inter-VLAN traffic can be strictly controlled. VLANs are central to your network segmentation, which is critical to prevent lateral movement of threats on the network. It subdivides network resources, ensuring boundaries between various network segments, so such as your finance departments and your developers. Unauthorized devices from one VLAN cannot interface or interfere or eavesdrop on traffic from another VLAN unless explicitly allowed by the firewall rules. We've got our RBAC controls, or our role-based access control, which allows administrators to systemically grant or restrict access to resources based on organizational roles rather than assigning permissions individually. In your Windows Server 2022, RBAC is typically configured through the Active Directory, where you define user roles, groups, and permissions tied to those roles. RBAC is extremely important for limiting the activities of users and the activities that they can perform on specific hosts. For example, a non-administrator user should not have the ability to install software or change critical system configurations. By assigning minimum privileges or following the principle of least privilege, you can prevent unintentional or malicious actions by a user. From a network side, RBAC ensures that only authorized personnel can access sensitive network resources such as file servers and databases. In the event of credential compromise or elevated permissions, so somebody is phishing or an internal threat, RBAC ensures that access to sensitive sectors is limited only to those who hold the required role-based permissions, which reduces the impact of security breaches. For Ubuntu, we're going to enable Secure Shell, which is a cryptographic network protocol for securely logging into systems and performing remote command execution over an encrypted channel. So SSH mitigates eavesdropping attacks and protects the confidentiality and integrity of the communication. So SSH plays a vital role in securely administering remote access to hosts, enforcing policies such as disabling root access via SSH and using key-based authentication. It reinforces secure management practices, ensuring that only authorized users can access essential systems. SSH not only ensures secure remote administrative tasks, but also prevents network-based attacks like man-in-the-middle or packet sniffing by encrypting communications. This protects sensitive data such as credentials and command execution while interacting with network devices remotely, including firewalls, routers, and switches. Last but not least, we have our NMAP scan. So using our Kali Linux, we're going to do an NMAP scan. NMAP is a popular and open source network scanner used to discover hosts and services on a network. It is a reconnaissance tool primarily used for identifying open ports, detecting service versions, and uncovering potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited by attackers. Security scanning tools like NMAP are essential for identifying misconfigurations or unintended open ports on a host, which attackers could use to infiltrate systems. By regularly scanning individual hosts, security teams can address vulnerabilities proactively and patch or close unnecessary ports. At the network level, scanning tools like NMAP help identify which services and ports are exposed, providing critical validation for network perimeter defenses such as your firewalls. By exposing these potential weaknesses early on, NMAP assists in fortifying an organization's defense before exploits or external attacks occur. So vulnerability management is ongoing for network security tasks, and it contributes to minimizing the attack surfaces. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually go into our group policy management. And we're going to enforce Windows Hello. We're going to go through here, right click, create a new one. Force Windows Hello. Once it's created, you're going to right click, edit. I'm going to go to computer policies. Just make this a little bit bigger so we can read it better. Then we're going to go down to Windows Settings, Security Settings. We're going to look for Local Policies. Then we're going to do Security Options. And then we're going to scroll down until we find Interactive Login. So if you hit the I button, it should bring you to the Interactive Logins. And here we got quite a few settings. So we have interactive require domain controller authentication to unlock workstation and require Windows Hello for small business. We want to enable. Once it's enabled, we're going to make sure it's an enforced policy. Looks like it is. And then we're good to go there. Since we're already in the Windows server, I actually want you to create a group and a user. So we're just going to hop in here. We're going to do a new group. And we're going to call them developer. And then we're going to create a new user. We want to set a password. User must change password on next login. Whoops. There we go. Now we want to add to group, to developers. Perfect. So that's all I want you guys to do there. So just before I continue, there's a few other things you can do. You can also install the network policy server role, and then you can install and configure the MFA provider for a third-party solution. So using things like Azure MFA. And you can also enable MFA for remote desktops so that if somebody is using RDP protocol, they have to verify with MFA as well. Totally recommend that. Now we need to go to our group policy management again. So let's go back to group policy management. Group policy objects, we got a few in here. As you can see, we got our starters. Okay, so I want you to create a new policy here. And we're going to create a new one. Going to call it software policy. Perfect. We're going to right click, edit. And we're going to go down to user configuration, software settings, software installation. Oops. Ah. Correction, that was for packages. We want to go to security settings, software restriction policies, action, new software restriction policy. So for trusted publishers, allow administrators and users to manage their own, allow only administrators to manage trusted publishers, and so on. So we're only going to allow our administrators to manage trusted software policies. And that's it for our server right now. There's a few more you're going to have to do in order to complete the exercise, but that's where I'm stopping here. And then we're going to move on over to our actual OpenSense firewall and our Windows 11 workstation. Before we work on our OpenSense, we're going to update our group policies. And then we're going to set up Windows Hello. Now that that's been updated, we're going to move over to Windows Hello. So we're going to go to our Start button. We're going to go to Settings. We're going to move to Accounts. We're going to go Sign In Options. This is where you can change the ways you sign in. Since we're in a virtual machine, we're actually going to use PIN. Okay, so if you run into what I just ran into, you might want to configure the policies under Group Policy Management on your server if this happens. So just open it up, navigate to your administrative templates for your policy, and then enable turn on convenience PIN sign-in and any of the other types of sign-in you want. And then once that's done, update your policies again in your workstation. And see if it's fixed. There we go. Now we can set up our PIN.
Hi, Travis.
Okay, so set your PIN. If for some reason it's asking you for a smart card, disable the smart card requirement in our group policies, and then come back and set your PIN. Last but not least is setting up our VLAN. So the aim is going to be to have our Ubuntu server on a separate VLAN.